They say a single phone call can split a life in two. For me, it came on a rain-soaked Thursday afternoon, the kind of day when memories stick to your skin like the Chicago humidity. I had just settled in my old recliner, scanning the latest headlines in the Dallas Morning News, when the phone rang, a piercing sound that cut through the stillness of my empty living room. "Mr. Walker, this is Dr. Graham from Baylor Medical Center." Doctors' voices are trained for tragedy, but you never get used to hearing it. My grip tightened on the receiver as I listened, my heart thundering in my chest. "I'm afraid I have to inform you, your son, Andrew, passed away today at 2:15 p.m. The paper slipped from my hands and floated to the floor, pages fluttering like lost hopes. "Passed away?" I croaked. "How? He was supposed to be improving, you said the new treatment." "I'm sorry. The cancer spread faster than we could control. He went peacefully." Words like that mean nothing in the moment. Nothing meant anything at all. My world narrowed to the click of the clock and the thud of my own heartbeat. Through the rain-streaked window, I saw neighbors walking their dogs, laughing, living, while my universe crumbled. I hung up, numb, and for a long time, I sat staring at the silent phone. Andrew, my brilliant, stubborn son, the one who'd turned a Texas garage into a national software powerhouse, gone. The boy who'd challenged his teachers, who'd spent an entire night explaining to me why honesty mattered more than profit, gone. I knew I needed to call someone, to say the words out loud and make them real. I dialed Emily, my daughter-in-law, Andrew's wife. The phone rang twice, and her voice came through, cool and perfectly poised. I could hear the clink of coffee cups, the faint buzz of a busy cafe in the background. "Hello, this is Emily Walker." "Emily, it's Robert." My throat tightened. "I just got a call from Dr. Graham, about Andrew." There was a pause, then her tone turned sharp, almost bored. "Yes, Robert. He passed. I already know. And before you try anything, let me make one thing clear. Whatever Andrew left behind, the business, the accounts, it's all mine. Don't expect to see a cent of it." Her words landed like ice water down my spine. I stared at the wall, picturing her sitting there, maybe even smiling, already calculating. "Are you kidding me?" I managed, my voice shaking. "My son just died, and you're talking about money?" "My husband just died," she snapped. "And unlike you, I understand how these things work. Andrew's will is ironclad. Don't waste your breath trying to fight it." I couldn't believe it. I wanted to scream, but no words came. I thought about the photo on the mantel, Andrew's graduation, his first big software launch, the family barbecue where he told me he was going to propose to Emily. I'd believed she loved him. Now, as I stood there surrounded by their smiling faces, I realized I'd been blind. When she hung up, I was left in a house that suddenly felt too big for one man, too full of ghosts. Emily, the woman I'd once welcomed into our family with open arms, had just shown her true face, and it was as cold as the rain pounding Dallas. For a moment, I considered calling her back, demanding answers, shouting at her for caring more about Andrew's money than his memory. But as rage and heartbreak battled in my chest, a new feeling took root: determination. Emily thought she could erase me with a signature and a line in a will. She was about to learn that a father's love, and a grandfather's resolve, doesn't disappear so easily. This was only the beginning. The night after Emily's call was the longest of my life. Sleep never came, only restless pacing from window to window, my thoughts churning like a Texas thunderstorm. I could still hear Andrew's laugh echoing down the hallway, see his childhood baseball glove tossed carelessly on the couch, and feel the weight of everything left unsaid between us. By dawn, I'd made up my mind. I pulled out the old photo albums, proof that I hadn't just dreamed up my son. There he was, a scrawny kid in Little League blue, grinning as he rounded home plate. There he was again. High school graduation, shaking hands with the principal, so sure the world was his. My fingers traced the edges of the photos, desperate to hold on to what little I had left. Andrew's illness filled the last album: thinning hair, forced smiles, the determined glint in his eye refusing to give up. There were hospital bracelets and get well cards tucked between pages, silent witnesses to a fight we'd all hoped he'd win. And there was Emily, always in the background, eyes fixed on her phone, never quite present. How had I missed it for so long? I poured myself a mug of black coffee, barely tasting it. Outside, the Dallas sun burned away the night's rain, but the world still felt gray. I knew what today would bring: a funeral, staged tears, a crowd of people offering comfort I didn't want. I dressed in my best suit, one size too big since Margaret passed, but I couldn't bear to buy a new one. As I fixed my tie, I caught my reflection in the mirror, an old man, weary but not broken. The service was held at Trinity Church, a sprawling red brick building Andrew had attended as a boy. I arrived early, wanting a moment alone before the crowd arrived. The sanctuary was quiet, pews polished to a high shine, sunlight pouring through stained glass and pools of gold and crimson. At the front stood Andrew's portrait, taken just before his diagnosis, full of life, ambition in his eyes. People filtered in slowly: old friends, distant relatives, even a few former colleagues from Andrew's tech company. I spotted Emily gliding through the crowd, dressed in designer black, diamond earrings winking in the morning light. She was surrounded by her friends, her laughter too bright, her tears suspiciously absent. As the service began, the minister spoke of hope and memories. Emily played her part, dabbing her eyes, nodding solemnly, gripping Andrew's mother's pearls as if they might anchor her to reality. I tried to focus on the words, but my mind drifted to Andrew's first broken bone, to the day he showed me his first computer program, to the night he told me he was marrying Emily. I'd hugged him then, convinced he'd found his happiness. Midway through the service, Emily leaned over, her voice just loud enough for me to hear. "I hope you understand, Robert, this is what Andrew wanted. He wanted his family provided for. That's why everything's coming to me." I didn't answer. The hurt was too raw, the anger too close to the surface. Instead, I gripped the edge of the pew until my knuckles whitened, willing myself not to cause a scene in front of Andrew's friends and colleagues. After the ceremony, people offered their condolences. I shook hands, accepted hugs, listened to stories about Andrew's generosity, his relentless drive, his integrity. Every word stung, not because they were false, but because they reminded me of how much we'd all lost, and how little Emily seemed to care. At the graveside, Emily put on her final act. She wept for the crowd, pressing a silk handkerchief to her eyes, letting her tears fall exactly where the cameras could see them. The local news had sent a reporter. Andrew had been a rising star in the Dallas tech scene, and his story was newsworthy. Emily played it up, never missing a cue. But as the last handful of earth thudded against the casket, her mask slipped. She turned to me, her eyes cold and hard. "Let's be civil, Robert. Andrew's affairs are in order, and you have no claim here. Don't embarrass yourself by fighting me on this." I stared at her, searching for any trace of the woman my son had loved. I saw only calculation, a mind already planning how to spend a fortune that wasn't hers to begin with. After the crowd drifted away, I lingered at the grave. The cemetery was peaceful now, sunlight glinting off the headstones, the air heavy with the scent of cut grass. I knelt beside the fresh earth, my hand trembling as I traced Andrew's name on the marker. "I'm sorry, son," I whispered. "I should have protected you from this. I should have seen who she really was." As I stood to leave, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Mr. Walker, you don't know me, but I have information about your son's will. Meet me at the Green Lantern Cafe tonight at 7. Don't trust Emily." My heart hammered in my chest. For the first time since Andrew died, hope flickered. Maybe all was not lost. Maybe, just maybe, the story wasn't over. The rest of that day crawled by in a haze of exhaustion and adrenaline. I tried to eat something but gave up after a few bites. My hands were too unsteady to hold a fork. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Andrew, his boyish grin, his stubborn set of the jaw, the spark in his eyes when he believed he was right, which was most of the time. It was strange how the mind worked, replaying the best and worst moments on an endless loop. As evening settled in, my curiosity and nerves only grew sharper. Who was this stranger that had texted me? What did they know about Andrew's will, and why did they say not to trust Emily? My instincts told me to be careful, but the other part of me, the part that refused to let my son's memory be erased, was willing to take the risk. I arrived at the Green Lantern Cafe just before 7. The place was a classic Dallas diner, the kind with checkered floors, red vinyl booths, and the scent of fried chicken lingering in the air. I took a booth in the back, my eyes darting to every person who walked through the door. At 7:05, a young woman in a blue blazer and worn jeans slid into the seat across from me. She looked anxious but determined, glancing around as if checking for eavesdroppers. "Mr. Walker?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "That's me," I replied. "And you are?" She hesitated, then handed me a business card. "Olivia Jensen, paralegal, Graham and Riley attorneys. I worked on your son's estate documents," she said quickly. "I know this isn't standard, but after what I saw, well, I had to reach out. You deserve the truth." My pulse raced. "Go on." She lowered her voice further. "A few days before Andrew died, he changed his will. He asked for privacy, so only the senior partner and I were there. I witnessed him signing new documents, leaving everything to you, his father, and to a charity for childhood cancer research. He was very clear." I stared at her, stunned. "But Emily, she told me the will gives everything to her." Olivia nodded, grim. "After Andrew passed, I came in for work and found the file missing. When I asked around, Emily was in the office that morning, said she was picking up personal effects. Later that day, a new will appeared in the file. It left everything to her and was dated just after Andrew's final change. But the signatures looked off. I compared them myself. A cold chill ran through me. "Are you saying?" She nodded. "I think Emily and her lawyer forged that will, Mr. Walker. I have copies of the signatures, and the original witness, the senior partner, he's gone missing. Nobody's seen him for days." My mind reeled. The rage I'd felt earlier was nothing compared to what crashed through me now. My son, even while dying, had tried to protect his legacy. And Emily, that cold-hearted vulture, had tried to steal it all. "Do you have proof?" I asked. She slid a thumb drive across the table. "Everything I have is on there. Scans, email chains, security footage of Emily in the office late at night. But I'm scared, Mr. Walker. Emily's not working alone. Her attorney, Michael Hartman, has a reputation for dirty tricks. I think they threatened the senior partner." For a long moment neither of us spoke. I looked at the drive, then back at Olivia. "Why are you risking this?" I asked. She shrugged, tears welling in her eyes. "I lost my dad to cancer last year. He was everything to me. When I saw what Andrew wanted, I knew I had to do the right thing, no matter what." I nodded, my own eyes stinging. "Thank you, Olivia. You did the right thing. I promise, I won't let them get away with this." She squeezed my hand, then quickly left the diner, glancing over her shoulder as she disappeared into the night. I sat there, the weight of the thumb drive in my palm, my mind already racing through what I had to do. First, I needed a lawyer I could trust, someone outside of Emily's reach. Second, I had to find out what happened to the missing senior partner. Third, I had to make sure I didn't tip my hand too soon. Emily was clever and ruthless. One wrong move and she'd bury the truth forever. As I walked back to my car under the neon glow of the diner sign, A familiar determination burned in my chest. For the first time since Andrew died, I felt like I had purpose again. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about justice, about legacy, about proving to my son that I'd never stop fighting for him, even when he was gone. I got in my car, started the engine, and called the one man I knew I could count on, my oldest friend, Sam Porter, a retired Dallas police detective with a nose for trouble and a hatred for bullies. "Sam, it's Robert. I need your help. And I need it tonight." Sam showed up at my door in less than 30 minutes, a little grayer and heavier than when we used to fish the Trinity River together, but the same sharp eyes and gravelly voice. He didn't waste time with condolences. He just sat across from me at my kitchen table, poured himself a coffee, and listened. I handed him Olivia's thumb drive and filled him in on everything: the calls, the forged will, the missing lawyer, the message from Olivia, Emily's threats, and my gut feeling that things were about to get uglier. Sam plugged the drive into his old laptop and started clicking through folders, occasionally whistling under his breath. "Damn, Bobby. This is real. Look at these signatures, the original and the one Emily submitted. They're not even close. And these security camera timestamps. They show Emily in the office hours after Andrew passed. What's more, here's an email chain. Andrew sent his last wishes to his lawyer and to the charity. He meant what he said." He leaned back and fixed me with a look. "You ready for a fight? Because this isn't going to be pretty." I nodded, feeling older but steadier than I had all week. "I buried my son, Sam. I've got nothing left to lose. I want justice, not just for me, but for Andrew." Sam sipped his coffee. "First thing, we get a lawyer. Not a big firm, someone who doesn't play golf with the crowd downtown. I know a guy named Marcus Brooks. Ex-Marine, runs a small practice out in Fort Worth. Tough as they come, and nobody owns him." By noon the next day, Sam and I were sitting in Marcus Brooks's cramped office, files stacked on every surface, a faded American flag in the corner. Marcus listened to our story, asked a few sharp questions, then said, "You bring me the proof, I'll bring you the truth. We're not letting anyone get away with robbing a dying man's legacy." He started by calling in a document examiner, a real expert, not one of Emily's cronies. Meanwhile, Sam began making quiet inquiries about the missing senior partner, putting out feelers with old contacts on the Dallas PD. I spent hours on the phone with the charity Andrew had named in his original will, confirming dates, emails, and everything Andrew had set up. Every piece fit the story Olivia had told me. Meanwhile, Emily seemed to sense something was wrong. She showed up at my house 2 days after the funeral, her knock sharp and insistent. She wore black again, but her mask was slipping. The eyes were colder, the voice more brittle. "Robert," she began, "I know we've had our differences, but I want this to be peaceful. Andrew wanted his affairs handled cleanly. If you just accept the will, we can all move on." I stared at her, every muscle in my jaw tight. "Is that so? Because from where I'm sitting, things are looking anything but clean." Her lips thinned. "You have nothing. The law is on my side. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." Something in her tone told me she was nervous. Maybe she'd heard whispers about the investigation. Maybe she'd seen Sam's car outside, or caught wind of Marcus's involvement. But she wasn't used to being challenged, not by an old man, not by anyone. "I buried my son, Emily," I said quietly. "And I'm not letting his memory be stolen by greed. Not now, not ever." She turned on her heel and left, her words lingering like smoke. "You're making a mistake." That evening, Marcus called. The handwriting analyst's report was already in. "Robert, your instincts were right. The new will is a forgery. There are inconsistencies in the signatures, ink, and even the paper stock. But there's more. The notary stamp on Emily's will was purchased 2 months after the date listed on the document. That's not just suspicious, that's criminal. Sam grinned as Marcus explained the next steps. We go to the DA with this, Sam said. We show them everything: Olivia's evidence, the charity's records, the handwriting report. We get the police looking for the missing lawyer, and we keep the press in our back pocket. If Emily and her crew want a war, we'll give them one. The days that followed were a whirlwind. My house became the center of our quiet rebellion. Olivia sent more files, and Sam spent hours running down leads on the missing attorney. Marcus filed an injunction with the probate court, freezing the estate until the matter could be resolved. Every day brought more news, some good, some bad. The DA's office was interested, but cautious. Emily's lawyer tried to push back, accusing me of harassment, threatening countersuits. I could see the stress wearing at Emily, but I refused to back down. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I was doing right by Andrew, fighting for him the way a father should. And one evening, just as the sun set behind the Dallas skyline, my phone rang again. Mr. Walker, this is Detective Laura Kent, Dallas Police. We found the missing attorney. He's ready to talk. Detective Kent sounded efficient and steady on the phone, the kind of person you wanted in your corner when the ground was shifting beneath your feet. She gave me an address, a small police substation in Oak Cliff, and asked if I could come in for a statement. The lawyer, Mr. Doyle, has been found safe. He's requested to speak to you and your attorney with detectives present. We're hoping this clears up a lot. Marcus and I drove over before the morning traffic. Sam met us there, already chatting up the front desk officer like an old friend. Inside, we found Mr. Doyle, thin, pale, hands trembling slightly as he gripped a cup of vending machine coffee. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in days. He stood when we entered, his eyes darting nervously between me and Marcus. Mr. Walker, he said, voice raspy. I'm sorry I disappeared. I was afraid for my safety after what I saw. Emily and her lawyer made threats. I had to get out of sight. Marcus got right to it. Did Andrew Walker sign a will leaving his estate to his father and charity? Doyle nodded. Yes. 3 days before he died. I witnessed it. I notarized it, along with Olivia. Andrew was clear-headed. He even made a video, just in case. But the night after, Emily came to the office with Hartman. She demanded the file. I refused. Next morning, the original was missing. The next will in the file was one I'd never seen before. Emily said it was an updated copy, but the signatures weren't mine, and the notary stamp was faked. Detective Kent, recording everything, nodded for him to continue. I went to the senior partner. He told me to keep quiet, to let the courts sort it out, but then he vanished. I think Emily's lawyer scared him off, too. I knew I had to hide, but I took copies of everything, video, emails, even a backup of the will. They're in my safe deposit box. I'll sign an affidavit. A weight I'd been carrying since Andrew's death finally started to lift. The evidence was real. My son's wishes had not been erased. For the first time, the fight felt winnable. By the time we left the station, Marcus had the video and documents in his possession. Detective Kent promised the department's fraud unit would open a full investigation into Emily and her lawyer. This kind of case gets ugly. She warned me. But you have truth on your side, Mr. Walker. Don't lose heart. News travels fast in Dallas, especially when lawyers and police get involved. Within 2 days, word had leaked to the local press. Stories appeared in the Dallas Observer and even on the evening news. Prominent tech entrepreneurs were challenged, forgery alleged by family. The media attention made Emily furious. Her lawyer sent Marcus 3 separate cease and desist letters in a single afternoon, each more desperate than the last. But the pressure was having an effect. Emily began to avoid public places, her once perfect mask slipping further. I heard from old friends, neighbors, business partners, even the pastor from Trinity Church, each one shocked, offering help, promising to speak for Andrew's character and his intentions. Olivia called one evening, her voice tired but relieved. The police asked for my full statement. They have the video, the emails, even my own notes. Mr. Walker, I just want to say, I'm glad you fought back. Andrew would have wanted it. Through it all, I tried to keep life as normal as possible. I walked the old neighborhood, watered the roses Andrew's mother had planted years before, and made sure to visit his grave every Sunday. I spoke to him quietly, promising that I'd see this through, that justice would be done. A court date was set. Probate court, downtown, the same old stone building where I'd signed the deed for my first house. This time, the stakes were everything my family had left. The night before the hearing, I didn't sleep. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table, looking through Andrew's childhood drawings, the old baseball glove, the medals from science fairs and chess tournaments. It struck me, as dawn crept over the city, that everything real about my son was right there, proof of a life lived with integrity and grit. Emily might have thought she could rewrite history with a forged document and a sharp lawyer. But she hadn't counted on the truth fighting back. As the sun broke over the Dallas skyline, painting the sky orange and pink, I straightened my jacket and set off to court with Sam and Marcus at my side. For the first time since the phone call that shattered my world, I walked with purpose. No fear, no hesitation. Whatever happened next, I would face it as Andrew's father, and I would not be moved. The Dallas County Probate Court was a limestone fortress, intimidating even after all my years in the city. As I walked inside, I saw Emily and her lawyer already there. Emily wore a sleek navy dress, but her confidence was gone, replaced by tight lines around her mouth and shadows under her eyes. Her attorney, Michael Hartman, whispered urgently, waving papers, but she barely listened, her gaze fixed on me, hard and defiant. Marcus and I took our seats at the petitioner's table. Sam sat behind us, his presence steady as ever. Olivia and Mr. Doyle arrived a few minutes later, both looking relieved to see the courtroom full of honest faces. Detective Kent nodded from the back row, arms folded, ready for anything. The judge, a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and a reputation for cutting through drama, called the room to order. We're here to determine the validity of two wills, one presented by Mrs. Emily Walker and one by Robert Walker, the decedent's father. Both claim to represent the final wishes of Andrew Walker. Let's proceed. Hartman was first, presenting Emily's will with legal jargon and confident flourishes. He talked about Andrew's supposed intentions, about how the law favored spouses, about dignity in death, and the decedent's desire to provide for his beloved wife. He didn't look at me once. Then Marcus stood, measured and steady. Your Honor, we contest the authenticity of Mrs. Walker's document. We have substantial evidence of fraud, including expert testimony, a notarized affidavit, and digital records. We also have a video of the decedent's final will, properly executed and witnessed by two credible parties, both present today. He called Olivia first. She described Andrew's instructions, the signing, the missing documents. She told the court about Emily's late-night visit to the law office, her intimidation, and the forged signatures. Then came Mr. Doyle, pale but unbroken, swearing on record that the will Emily presented was a fake, and that he had been threatened into silence. Marcus presented the handwriting expert's report, then finally played Andrew's video, my son, thin and tired but clear-eyed, looking directly into the camera. If you're seeing this, something went wrong. My last wishes are in the signed will with my father and Olivia Jensen. I want my estate divided between Dad and the Pediatric Cancer Foundation. Emily knows why. The courtroom was silent except for the soft whir of the projector. Even the judge watched without blinking. Detective Kent provided a brief statement for the record, confirming the investigation into the forgery and disappearance of the original documents. She didn't accuse Emily outright, but her words were enough. Evidence supports the contention that material fraud occurred. The DA's office is reviewing charges. Hartman tried to recover, attacking the credibility of Olivia and Mr. Doyle, but it was hopeless. Marcus handled every objection, every desperate move. The judge finally called a recess to review the evidence herself. We waited in the hallway, the tension thick. Emily glared at me, but there was fear behind her eyes now, and something close to desperation. Her lawyer snapped at her in a hushed, angry whisper, then stormed off to make calls. Sam grinned at me. Looks like the tide's turning, Bobby. I could only nod, my chest tight with hope and nerves. I thought of Andrew, of all the nights we'd stayed up late talking about the future, about right and wrong. I could almost hear his voice, calm, stubborn, quietly proud. Finally, we were called back in. The judge's voice was calm but final. I have reviewed the evidence. The video, the affidavit, and the expert reports leave no doubt. The will presented by Mr. Walker is authentic. The document submitted by Mrs. Walker is a forgery. The court rules that Andrew Walker's estate is to be divided as directed in his true final will. A sound escaped Emily, something between a gasp and a sob. She clutched her purse, knuckles white, as Hartman muttered a curse and packed his briefcase. The judge continued, "In light of evidence of attempted fraud, I am referring this matter to the district attorney's office for further investigation. This court is adjourned." It was over. Just like that, the months of worry, anger, and grief finally crashed into something like relief. Marcus shook my hand. Olivia wiped tears from her eyes. Sam slapped my back, grinning like a kid. Emily swept out of the courtroom, head down, her future uncertain and reputation shattered. Justice had been served, not just for me, but for Andrew. I left the courthouse into the bright Texas sunshine, a weight lifted from my shoulders at last. Victory tasted different than I'd expected. It wasn't sweet or dramatic, just a deep, quiet satisfaction, like the first sunrise after a storm. For weeks after the verdict, the city hummed with gossip. The Dallas Observer ran a feature on the Walker will scandal. I saw my own name in print for the first time in years, and Andrew's legacy made headlines far beyond the tech community. Emily, stripped of her mask and her power, tried every trick in the book. Her lawyer threatened appeals, floated wild stories to the press, even offered private settlements if I'd let her keep something for her trouble. I refused every time. She faded from the social scene, and it didn't take long for the district attorney to bring charges for attempted fraud and forgery. Last I heard, she'd moved out of state, trailing debts and rumors behind her. But my focus was elsewhere. With the estate finally settled, I did what Andrew would have wanted. The first check I wrote was to the Pediatric Cancer Foundation. $20 million, enough to fund years of research, enough to give hope to families facing the same nightmare we had. The day I handed the donation over, the director hugged me, tears in her eyes. "This will change so many lives, Mr. Walker. Your son would be proud." I used my share of the inheritance wisely. I paid off my modest home, funded scholarships at Andrew's old high school, and rebuilt the neighborhood baseball field where he'd learned to run and dream. I even replaced the tired rose bushes in our backyard with a garden that would bloom for years, a living memorial to my boy. Sam and I fished again, like old times. Sometimes we'd sit on the riverbank for hours, not saying much, just grateful for the simple things. Olivia became a regular visitor, always bringing updates from the charity, sometimes joining me for coffee and a game of chess. She'd found her own courage through this ordeal, and I knew she'd make a difference in her world. On the anniversary of Andrew's passing, I gathered everyone who mattered at the baseball field, friends, family, kids from the cancer center, even some of Andrew's old colleagues. We planted a tree at home plate, then took turns telling stories, funny, heartbreaking, true. There was laughter and tears, but above all, there was love. After everyone left, I stood beneath the new tree, feeling the breeze on my face. I took out the letter Andrew had written me, One last message, tucked away with the will, discovered by Marcus during the final sorting of Andrew's things. Dad, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry I couldn't stay longer, but I need you to keep living. Take care of the folks who need help. Be the man who taught me to dream. I love you. Your son, Andrew. I folded the letter, pressed it to my heart, and watched the sun set over the city Andrew had helped shape. I finally understood, justice isn't about winning or losing. It's about standing up for what's right, no matter how hard it gets. It's about love that won't be bullied by greed. It's about legacies, built not on money, but on the choices we make and the people we touch. My story, Andrew's story, wasn't about fortune after all. It was about finding purpose through loss, courage through grief, and hope, even when the odds seemed impossible. As the lights of Dallas flickered on, I knew I'd done my duty, as a father, as a grandfather, and as a man who never stopped fighting for his family. And somewhere out there, I hoped my son was smiling,